So they're about 50 years old and people are still using them for mixing. Why is that then? So yes, here's the NS10, the mighty NS10. Why are they any good? If you haven't come across NS10s before, or maybe you have and you just want my thoughts on it, this is a classic old school NS10. Now, it's a sealed box. Let me run through an NS10. I won't give you all the details because there's plenty of websites out there that detail them in detail. So it's basically a closed box. It's got this like all-in-one cone that's kind of folded. There's a folded line. It's very stiff speaker and it's made out of a special kind of paper. That's what made them so good, allegedly. There's maybe three or four different types of tweeters and a crossover in the middle, inside. And the different tweeters are because some of the earlier ones were brighter, and then there were some studio versions that came out because a guy called George Massenberg was using them and he had put some tissue paper over the top to stop it being so bright, so they made some especially for that. That's kind of it. Now these ones, my ones, I've put some new back stuff on so you can see they've got some gold things, and I also went to town and did silver cable all the way through them because I'm mental and I thought that it would make them sound better. Now the best thing about NS10s is you should power them, like really strongly power them with something like a Bryston or a Quad 405, and there's like a mod for the 405 that you can get. 405 is cheaper than a Bryston. You have that on full power and then you use your preamp to adjust the level, and that's what gives you a nice bit of bass. Now the good thing about these are you can have them on top of your mixing console and you get a decent sound from them just from the splashback from the mixing console, which sounds random, but it does work because I even used these when I was mastering at a place called Soundmasters. We had a huge desk and we used to get loads of bass response out of these, which was brilliant. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm here to talk to you about why they're good for mixing. Now, the reason why personally, I've used these for mastering as well because I wanted to get, when I was into doing production in the 90s and 2000s, I was mastering at the same time and I just wanted to know why. So I got into these for mastering as well as having a big set of mains. And I found it really useful once I got my head into them because what they're dealing with really essentially is the mid-range. It's kind of for me, it's a mid-range speaker. It's kind of really hard on the ear. So when you get the mids right on them, it's kind of hard, but not hard. It's kind of nice. If you know NS10s, you'll know what I mean. It's kind of, I could go into them and get them edgy because then I know if they're edgy and hard, it's going to translate really well, but also I could really hear the finer details of the mids in there. So what I would do a lot of the time is I would master just on doing the mids and getting all the mids right and the lower mids, which I could hear with these. You can hear pretty low. I mean, I think they go down to, you'll hear bass and kick and things in them, not masses of sub. That's why, music's changed a lot over the last 30 odd years where we've got a lot more subs going on. These were in the day where, I'm going off on tangents here, but this was in the day of vinyl, where vinyl didn't like loads of low end. And so a lot of sort of even 70s music and stuff doesn't have loads of subs in. There wasn't a lot of subs going on. So maybe in dub music and like reggae and things, but really it was still like quite a high registered bass. So that's why you could hear what was going on these and you could really fine tune that high register bass rather than hearing the subs. So that's why these were in that era really great, because you were just dealing with the frequencies that sounded great on vinyl. You weren't dealing with excessive highs and loads of low end. And if there's loads of really excessively high end, the lathe doesn't like it. So the lathe it goes really fast and then the stylus pops out, so you don't have excessive high end on a lathe. So when it comes to these, if these were super bright, it meant that it was going to translate well onto the lacquer, because the lacquer doesn't like the brightness. So these being brighter than bright, like really hard, it meant that they translated onto the vinyl, if you get what I'm saying. So that's why I think these worked really well in a mastering situation in the kind of 70s and 80s. But as we got into more sub, then you need a sub and you need some bigger speakers, so that's where we are now. But I love the fact of there's a lot of mix engineers that still use these, still swear by them once you get used to them, because it's that detail in the mid-range. And most of the information that's happening in music is in the mids. It's in the low mids or it's in the high mids. That's where most of the instrumentation is. And you can really sort of pick that detail out and get that when you've got your head into these and when you've got used to them. You can really sort of get that right. You can really hear the balance well. At low level, when you're mixing, super low level, you can really hear the balance of individual instruments well on them. So that's why they worked, for that reason. So you just end up getting used to them as a pair of speakers. Of course, there's a million speakers around these days, and a lot more that are, you know, will do a similar job to this and in a better way. But you know that these are rock solid. Wherever you go, there's always going to be a pair of NS10's that you can throw up, have a listen to, and like. I mean, Noel Gallagher, when mastering with him, he only will use NS10's. He doesn't like to listen on anything else apart from NS10's. So he'll always want a set of NS10's up because he's a guitar man, and they don't like bass. They don't like bass in guitar music. They just want it edgy and middly and that kind of sound, because that is the sound of old rock music and old guitar music. It's kind of, you know, brittle, and it's all about the high mids. So that's really NS10's for you. You know, great for guitar music. But I like, you know, I do a lot of hip hop and a lot of dance music, and it works really well because when you can get those little finer details down in the mids for dance music, it still translates really well. So definitely worth still getting, definitely worth having a look at. The CLA ones are around, which are the new Avatone ones. I've did a video on that. I'll link that above or below, and then you can see what I thought about those new versions. But really, these are still probably about £400 secondhand. You can still get them, so definitely worth getting an original set, I think, just because they're nice to have around and just have a second pair of monitors. So yeah, NS10's, that's it. That is why they are one of the best speakers ever made, and I think they'll always carry on because people like the sound, they've got used to it, and yeah, that's it. So I've got a few pairs that I'm keeping, but yeah, you can see I don't have any at the moment because these do the mids in a similar way, if you like, so no need. Anyway, I'll stop rabbiting on about NS10's. Thanks for watching. Till next time, please remember to subscribe. Thanks very much. Bye.